Good evening, everybody. It is so wonderful to see you. I need to turn my sound off. All of my notifications are going off. It is so great to see all of you guys. Technically, I'm staring at a phone, but I'm pretending I'm seeing a whole bunch of wonderful, beautiful people out there. So I would like to welcome Alan Ogden, the Glutathione Authority. He has a degree in pharmacognosy medicine or pharmacology. He also has an energy medicine degree, 4 nutritional degrees. He also has done a lot of work in geriatric medicine, pediatric medicine, oncology, has 40 plus years as a pharmacist, owned his own pharmacies. He also has done all sorts of amazing consulting and stuff like that for all sorts of different companies, has spoke more than 3,000 times? I don't know. He's a seasoned speaker in all health matters and stuff, kind of like the Beatles. I think he has as much stage time as the Beatles, possibly. So I am very honored to welcome this encyclopedia of health and wisdom and knowledge to the arena so that he can educate you guys, and I learn from him just as much as you do every time that he educates. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Mr. Glutathione Authority.
Thank you for having me, and it's always great to be here and do these events and have the assistance of Harmony. I am a baby boomer, and technology is something that, we think we know something about as baby boomers, and I know there's baby boomers that are really techno-savvy. I'm a little more savvy in looking inside a cell or looking inside of an organism than I am looking inside a computer and looking inside of technology. So we got together and I helped Harmony recover from a concussion, and then watched her take pranic healing, emotion code, body code, clinical hypnotherapy, write her own program. She's running a healing practice. She helps me with this. She's writing books right now, not just one book, but there's going to be a bunch of books that are going to come out in the near future. And I'm just really, really proud to sit by her as an equal in these events. So we bring different perspectives. I bring a more scientific, science-backed perspective, and Harmony brings the more emotional side of illness and wellness and health and so on. So great balance, and I really appreciate that. So, awesome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Just before we get going, you mentioned my speaking, and so when people say, have you really, when I tell people how much I've spoke, they're like, oh, gosh, what? How did you do that? Well, I had an incredible privilege. Years ago, there was a wellness center opened in California called the Center for Optimal Health. And I had the incredible privilege to be there in 1996 for the opening of that. And I got chosen at that time to be a speaker for that organization. And I literally, that became part of my career. So I literally have spoke all over North America and other places as well for anywhere from 2 to 26,000 people. It was an incredible time in my life. I enjoyed every time I was on the stage. I got to be on the stage or in the green room. I was never on the stage. And when people say I was on the stage or so on, no, you were actually in the green room. They were on the stage doing their thing. But I've been in the green room with some pretty incredible people, Robert Kiyosaki. Anyway, the list goes on and on. I don't really want to get into that. But just people that you would not meet ordinarily in your day-to-day life. I got like a half an hour with Zig Ziglar one time, just him and I just talking, and just great to be in that position. I was there to talk about health and wellness. They were there to talk about whatever they were talking about, and so really, really great stuff. Anyway, tonight I wanted to talk about soy. And the reason I want to talk about soy is every Monday night when I leave here, I actually drive past the place where if you are using soy beverages, even if you're in the United States, if you're using soy beverages, 90% of the soy beverages are actually produced in 3 warehouses on my way home from Harmony's house. They're created down on the waterfront here, in the commercial section of the waterfront in these 3 warehouses. And here's the crazy thing. There's soy nice and soy good and soy this and soy that. They actually are all produced in pretty much the same facilities. Now, there is some production in the United States as well that's coming on, but these guys have literally owned that market for years. I got to tour those facilities a number of years ago, and I really got to get an insight into how soy is processed and how it's utilized. And back in the day, the reason I was interested was that Al Sears, and some of you would remember that name, Barry Sears, Al Sears is a different doctor, Barry Sears wrote a book called The Zone Diet. And the Zone Diet was, you remember the Zone Diet?
I do.
Yeah, the Zone Diet was just like this huge thing. And then a few years later, he wrote this book on soy protein, and he called it like the perfect food. He was so excited about it or enthused about soy protein that he actually got the FDA to certify soy protein for the reduction of cholesterol. So if you go and look at a package of soy protein, if you can find it, you can barely find it anymore. Not many people are selling it. But it used to say they will have a little red sticker on there, and it had a health claim. 25 grams of soy protein per day would cause a reduction in cholesterol. So I don't really know the story behind that. I just know that he got that health claim. I don't know the research. A little while later, not Dr. Sears, but one of the people who worked with him on that project came out with another book, and literally, I'm going to say, just trashed everything that they had said or had been said about soy protein. So understand the change. What's happened in production since Barry wrote his book, when soy was actually being grown in North America, and it was organic, non-GMO soybeans, to today, where you can barely find non-GMO soybeans. Most 50% of the soybeans are coming from China, being mixed in with what's grown in North America. Now, we do have places in Canada, there's a few places in the United States, but very few. There are a few places that still grow organic soybeans, non-GMO. Very, very hard to find. And those, unfortunately, are not used in the food production that we see today. So all of the protein bars that you see that have soy, they have soy bits in them, or they have soy protein, or they have soy something in them. That comes from this huge amount of GMO soy that's produced in the world. And what's the difference? Well, that soy was actually made to be resistant to the things that would attack it. So it's made to be resistant. It's made so they can soak it with herbicides and pesticides without supposedly damaging the plant. But of course, it's not a molecule that's naturally grown. It's not a molecule our body recognizes, and it has some things in there that just literally have changed the face of soy. So I might be preaching to the choir out there. I might not. There might be a lot of people out there who don't like eating meat and have decided that they're going to eat soy protein as a substitute. And I would really want you to research that before you make that choice. Because soy protein has a lot of complications. And I know that Harmony and I have talked about this before, and she can tell you about the ladies' complications. I can tell you about the men's complications because there's two ingredients in soy protein that actually are phytoestrogens. And phytoestrogens in men, like men don't need a lot of estrogen. We have estrogen, by the way. Men have estrogen, just like ladies have testosterone. We have some estrogen, but we don't need a lot of estrogen. And when we get a lot of estrogen, well, we start to get
weird things start to happen.
Weird things start to happen, absolutely. We get man boobs. There's lots of weird things that start to happen. So just outside of the fact that, you know, there's other damaging things, but
a lot of people use soy milk as a replacement for dairy products that have lactose intolerance and stuff like that as well. And if you look at the amount that people are consuming dairy in their coffee and their tea, if you're the type of person who is drinking 5 coffees a day, which most people that are coffee drinkers on average are drinking that much, how much soy milk are you actually putting into your coffee? So how much are you consuming throughout the day? And what a lot of people don't realize is that it really, really affects your endocrine system. And so, like he was saying, from the male perspective, obviously, you know, they're dealing with some body parts doing weird things that they don't want it to, women are severely affected with the ability to be able to get pregnant, and it's one of the leading factors that is affecting infertility in women in North America.
Yeah, soy is just used so ubiquitously in our food system now.
Yeah.
Because it's very inexpensive and it's ubiquitous. You really have to work for it.
Ubiquitous?
Ubiquitous.
That's a big word, so we'll just explain that one.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Without
yeah.
any regard.
I just know a lot of people have not heard that word.
Yeah. So on a personal note, our daughter, who's a nurse, worked 12-hour shift, and she was replacing milk. Somebody said something about dairy causing cancer or whatever, and so she replaced her milk, and she was using soy. And about 3 weeks later, she got a rash, and just not anything really bad, but just sort of this little measly-looking kind of rash. And she's working in ICU, so they had her checked out, and no, she doesn't have anything really wrong with her and whatever. And so she's talking to me one night, and she's telling me this, and I said, "Oh, well, that's from your soy protein in your drink." And she's like, "Really? Because it's supposed to be really good for you." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's supposed to be really good for you. But when they process the soybeans, they have to use formic acid. Formic acid combines with the protein that's in soy and makes formaldehyde. And once you can't get that out. So anything they do, you've got formic acid in there. It's going to convert some of it to formaldehyde, even if it's a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. It's still there.
You're still consuming how much? If you're consuming it in your milk and you're using it as a replacement for your meat, and then you're eating soy protein bars, and then you're having soy protein shakes and everything. If you're a vegan or you're vegetarian, just think throughout the day how much and how many different ways you're using soy as a replacement, and you're consuming rather large amounts. So it adds up pretty quick.
It does. And so I said to her, why don't you just change? So she changed to almond milk. The rash went away. She's never had a challenge since. And just while we're talking about that, of course, there's lots of people who go to vegetarian buffets or whatever, and so they'll have a meat alternative, some kind of meat alternative. Quite often, it's made out of soy. I found out during this tour of the processing facility that that's some of the least expensive sort of leftover material that you can get from the soy protein breakdown. That they actually make those chunks out of that you can buy in the store to cook for yourself or whatever, and that is probably it's sort of like the latter end of the production run. They've kind of taken all the good they can off of it, and then they make these chunks that they sell. That's what people are cutting up and using in there as a meat replacement. And I think it's, first of all, so I really want to get this straight. If you've ever seen Barry Sears' book on soy protein, what Barry was talking about was actually true. Soy protein, the way they were processing it back then, the type of soy they were using, it had value. It really did have value as a food alternative. The soy protein we're talking about today that's in America, that's highly used in our food system, is not the same. So I'm really not faulting Dr. Sears for what he said about soy way back then. The challenge is what we had 25 years ago is not in the market today. That's not what's being used. Soy crisps and soy this and soy that, that's not the soy that's being used. We're using this GMO, this highly modified product that doesn't have any really much relation to what we're talking about 25 years ago. In addition, there's glyphosate in the soy. It's in the soy. Like, they cannot get it out of the soy. It's literally in. If you're growing soybeans, if you're doing that, they've used it so much that it's part of the DNA. It's part of the soy. So
and glyphosate is what?
Well, glyphosate is Roundup, basically, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know the thing is there's people that are aware of what's going on and maybe the names of the chemicals that are being used, and there's a lot of people out there that actually have no clue. So just want to make sure everybody out there has a clue what that is and that it's bad.
No, it's bad. Yeah, it's bad. I mean,
because amino acids have big names too, and they're good. So how are we supposed to know which words are good and which big words are bad? It's all a secret language. They do it on purpose, guys.
That's right. They do it on purpose. And so You're hearing a lot in the news now about glyphosates. They're everywhere, sort of like BPA was a few years ago with plastic. It's just everywhere. It's ubiquitous in our food supply. And so eating something that literally has it in it by its own nature is kind of a crazy thing to do. So what are some of the challenges from this? Well, talking from the male side, not only do we, have body parts that grow funny and hair that shouldn't be.
And it's going to affect your sex drive as well.
I was just going to say, it totally obliterates your libido. That's probably reason enough for most guys not to touch soy protein. But anyway, it obliterates your libido. It like Harmony said, it affects your endocrine system, and we're now beginning to understand all the ways that it actually can affect your endocrine system. So if you combine, just think about this for a minute, if you combine soy protein with other vegetables, like lots of broccoli and spinach and so on, which are themselves highly phytoestrogenic, in other words, they can mimic estrogen as well, you could be thinking, wow, I'm really eating healthy here. Look at me, I'm eating, I'm not eating my meat. I'm eating, this this meat substitute here. And by the way, I don't know of a meat substitute that does not have soy protein in it, okay? The two new burgers that are out in the market that are supposed to be so wonderful for people, when I looked at the ingredients in both of them, they both have soy. They have pea protein, but they have soy. That is reason enough for me not to go anywhere near them. And I noticed that one of the restaurant chains in Canada recently just discontinued selling. They were making a breakfast burger, and they discontinued selling that meatless burger.
Well, my little sister was consuming it on a regular basis because she's gone vegetarian, and she ended up almost hospitalizing herself in a state of emergency because she was eating it daily.
It's very hard on your intestinal tract, very hard to digest.
But the problem is it's being sold like it's just a meat replacement. And if you think about how often the average meat eater is consuming meat, especially somebody like me who's on more of a ketogenic diet, which is high protein, if I take the meat replacement version and eat that as much as I eat protein, I'm going to do some serious damage, which is why my sister ended up really, really sick and, was asking her boyfriend to drive her to Emerge.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It interrupts your digestive system. It leaves a lot of leftover protein in your digestive tract because, once again, it's not the protein that we talked about before. And also vegetable proteins as a whole, even pea protein, et cetera, are more difficult for us to digest.
They're more fibrous.
They're actually more concentrated. They're really, so pea protein, like if you look at the peas, and this is true of the soybeans too, they have genetically modified them to have more protein in them. And so I was out in a field where the peas were being grown, and the really young peas were really nice and juicy and sweet, but they don't stay that way. Actually, the peas that they use, like in soups and things like that, where you have to have shelf life, they're a high protein pea, and they're hard as rock, and you can barely chew those things.
Yeah.
When they're mature, they're just solid. So you take that, grind it up, whatever, that compacted, almost composted material, and put it in our intestinal tract. And if somebody tells you that you can digest vegetable proteins just as good as you can digest other proteins, I would like to see their science. I don't think there's a science on that. So we were made with proteases that were made for what we generally eat, being omnivores, having the ability to eat meat and vegetables. And we have proteases, catalases, lipases, and so on that are made for that diet. And so to throw something in there that's completely not from that group, we don't have the enzymes to do it. So
well, and I don't know if any of you guys experience what I do, but I did a raw diet for a month to experiment because I went for my 30th birthday, so that was 10 years ago, on a yoga surfing retreat. And the woman who was providing the food for us, who put together the retreat, she was feeding us raw for the weekend. And I experienced digestive issues. while that was happening. And when I asked her why I was struggling, she's like, oh, well, your body's just detoxing, honey, because you've been eating all that horrible meat and all that horrible, so your body's just cleansing itself. So I decided to test out the theory and live that way for 30 days. I just want you guys to know you wouldn't have wanted to hang out with me. I was gas powered.
Yes.
I literally was gas powered because the fibrous carbs, in other words, vegetables, are very hard to digest. And so your stomach is on overdrive, producing gases, producing acids to try to digest it. So, I mean, even now I learned the lesson the painful way. And if I have any vegetables that are more fibrous, I steam or cook them before I eat them. So I don't know if that's a thing for you guys, but I mean, have fun and try experimenting with different eating, what do you call it, ideologies, processes, diets, because everybody kind of has a way that they like to tell you to eat. I went to a vegan party and there were people that were fruitarians, there were people that were vegetarians, there were vegans, there was raw till 4. So you eat raw food until 4 p.m. and then you can eat whatever. I actually told everybody that I eat everything. I'm kind of on a seafood diet. I don't like to reject any foods because I feel like it's going to hurt the food's feelings. They actually totally bought that. It was great. But there's all sorts of different, and I really encourage you actually to go on a journey to try eating different ways. I did vegan for a month as well when my son was younger because I wanted him to appreciate everything that the animals provide for us. It's good to go without for a little bit so that you can do that. And also so that you can see how your body does with it and without it, because when it comes to it, what Alan is saying is completely correct. On top of that, you want to look at how your body specifically responds to things and to go on your own health journey, because for some people, salmon can be really, really good for them. But there's an amazing woman who wrote a book who actually puts you on an elimination diet, and then you slowly start to integrate foods into your health plan, and then you realize that there might be some certain foods like almonds or salmon or something that's oatmeal that's really healthy for everybody else, but for some reason you find yourself really bloated and inflamed as a result of it. So here's all the doctors saying that you should be getting your omegas through eating salmon and stuff like that, but for some reason you bloat out and gain 5 pounds overnight, having the salmon. So, look at the chemicals and everything that are in your food, but over and above that, really make it an individual journey as well. Before you continue, I just wanted to quickly ask Jenny's question. She said, since it's bad for the gut, how do you think that it affects mental health? And that is such a good question. Such a good question.
Well, that's one of the things that men who eat lots of soy, not only do they lose their libido, but they have really bad mood swings. And like Harmony was saying, when she was eating raw, she wasn't getting nutrition, so she was hangry. And you're absolutely right, Jenny Lang. So it is that bad for you, and it does interrupt. So anytime you're getting food into your intestinal tract that you're not digesting, your body's not able to digest it, your body reacts. So it actually causes an inflammatory process. Generally speaking, you flood water down there. People that are really know their food sensitivities know, for instance, I know when I eat soy, because I've learned over the years when I eat soy, all of a sudden I can feel my gut will just fill up with water. It's just sort of like the bloating, whatever. But that's an inflammatory process that's going on.
Yeah.
And so if you're inflamed, your body's not going to absorb the other nutrients. It's just not. And then it's not getting the nutrients, you're going to get mood swings. You're going to get sometimes anger issues, depression. Depression's a really big thing in guys because their testosterone gets thrown off. I'm sure it's probably a thing in ladies too, as their estrogen gets thrown off.
Yeah, testosterone is known as that hormone that's the instigator. So when men don't have a lot of testosterone, they're not going to essentially instigate things happening in general. So it can really affect your motivation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's massive.
So I just want to, there's the soy that's used, when you go out and you start reading labels, you will be amazed, especially if you're a person who, well, you're just going to be amazed. You start reading labels, you're going to be amazed at how much food we buy actually has soy added into it. Soy lecithin, some kind of soy that's in there. When I started looking at labels, I was literally shocked. So I'll let you enjoy that pleasure too, to start looking at labels and see the things that soy is actually in.
It's almost as bad as sugar.
It's almost as bad as sugar, yeah. Now, I know that there's going to be some people that are listening to me that are going to argue with me and say, yeah, but I eat tempeh, I eat kefir, I only eat that good kind of soy. And that might be true. So while tempeh and kefir are much higher quality, and generally they're not processed, they're raw, they tend to be organic. When I look at their delivery system, so I was in the store the other day and they had nice big bottles of kefir, tempeh, etc., etc. I'm looking at that, and the carb to protein ratio in those is way off, way out of whack. So you're getting a whole bunch of carbs. What that means to me is that they're covering the taste, because soy does not taste very good. So they're covering the taste with sugar. So they've covered it with some kind of sugar. It might be juice sugar, it might be fructose, but they're covering the taste. So when I look at that and I see, this is just one that I looked at and said it had like 6 grams of protein. So we're talking about a glass, had 6 grams of protein, and then it had 56 grams of carbs. And I'm like, wow, that is so far out of balance. When you want to keep your carbs and protein to a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 carbs to every gram of protein, that's so out of whack. Like I would have to drink that, but then I'd have to look for more protein. So while they might be okay for you, and if you can find just kefir and just tempeh, not in a drink, not in a beverage, I haven't found them really readily available, not in a beverage. And I'm sure they are somewhere, but I haven't found them readily available. So to me, that means they probably have a really short shelf life, really short half-life on the shelf, and so they're not really made readily available. So that's true. Then the other thing I just wanted to cover real quickly is the soy sauce, because lots of people use soy sauce, and generally speaking,
my baby likes China Lily, and I was raised on China Lily.
Yeah. So generally speaking, there are good quality soy sauces. So they're made. Their process is different, and the soy sauce. I'm just going to say, generally speaking, soy sauces are okay to eat. The challenge that you might want to be aware of when you're eating soy sauce is the amount of salt you're consuming at the same time. Because
so much sodium.
So much sodium.
Oh, why is it we get so bloated when we're eating Chinese food and Japanese food? I wonder why.
Yeah, because
I usually tend to gain 2 or 3 pounds, and then like a couple of days later it balances out again, like overnight.
A good Chinese buffet will give you 8 to 10,000 milligrams of salt, no problem. Easily. And then you add soy sauce to that, which is 1,000 milligrams per tablespoon or whatever it is.
That's your intake for how many days?
For a week.
Yeah.
So soy sauce, I like it. I like it on rice. I like a little bit of soy sauce and stuff. I'm really, I'm just kind of careful with it, but
sporadically it's fine.
Yeah, sporadically it's fine. So just going back to soy as a protein source, it would have been wonderful, literally, if it was true that the soy that we got years ago could have been instigated into the food system. And it just so happened that as soon as people really started to open up to the idea that they could eat soy protein, GMO came along. Because the crops are, when you transition into a new crop, you attract all sorts of new bugs that you haven't had before. So, and this is a Monsanto thing. Most of the people that got into the soy business were encouraged by Monsanto to get into the soy growing business, and along with that came, the GMO the contracts, if you're going to grow soy, you're going to put these chemicals on it, et cetera, et cetera. So really, no, I'm not blaming anybody. It's just nobody really understood at the time. And if you're a farmer and you can grow a guaranteed crop, you know that it's going to be bought at the end of the year. There's some security in that I certainly appreciate and understand. I've never been a farmer, but I do. Donna's family are farmers, and they have grown peas for many years for Lipton's on a contract, and so that just gives them a gigantic sense of relief that crop is sold. Like whatever they grow, that crop is sold. Now they don't have any specific chemicals and so on that they have to put on their pea crop. They grow peas way up in northern Saskatchewan, and they grow there naturally. They just grow the high protein peas there for use in soups, etc. So it's just an unfortunate thing that GMO and soy sort of all intermingled at the same time. And I'm really hoping that doesn't happen with hemp, because there's really, for somebody who's looking for a really high quality, non-meat protein source, hemp protein is really, really incredible.
Yeah.
Hemp has all of our amino acids. It has all of our omega fatty acids. Unfortunately, it tastes like dirt. It's very dirty tasting.
Yeah, unless you're having the hemp hearts, which I give to my birds. They eat it all the time. And it's such a natural, amazing source of fat. And you can take that and sprinkle it on your cereal or put it in your smoothies and all that kind of stuff. But the actual, unfortunately, the protein, which I worked with a woman who was raised on a farm with a hemp protein family, and she made me hemp milk. Actually blended it and strained it and did the whole thing from scratch, and I tried it and it was horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible.
She absolutely loved it, and she based on what she told me, she sold me on it, and then I tried it and it was absolutely horrible. And I tried to get into hemp protein and I just couldn't do it. It just tastes like dirt and it's horrible. So, I mean, if it's something that you really love and you want a healthy, protein that's going to give you everything you need, you can absolutely do that. You just have to find a way to stomach the taste.
Yeah, and there are some flavored hemp proteins on the market. Today, my challenge with them is they're so much more expensive than any other kind of protein supplement that you would take. And, when we look at the benefits from collagen protein and we compare that to, say, the benefits of soy protein, or any other vegetable protein, they're really non-comparable. The collagen protein, the one we have in front of us here, bioidentical. The peptides, the amino acids, the peptides are bioidentical to the human body. As they are in hemp, hemp protein has bioidentical peptides in it as well as the fatty acids. So somebody will solve, I'm sure, the taste problem with hemp at some point, and it will be a good source. And I'm sure that we'll find that it actually will help reduce cholesterol as well. I'm just making this projection out into the future because of the essential fatty acids that are inherent in the hemp protein. It's got to help your cholesterol levels. So overall, I just, like I say, I drive by this place every Monday night. When I'm going home, I drive by, there's these 3 buildings down on the waterfront. They're big buildings. They're all labeled differently, by the way. Because there's 3 different brands of soy milk on the market, and they all come from basically the same place. And last year Canada and or America, we'll just say North America, so Canada and the United States, we grew about 700,000 ton of soybeans. We were outgrown by the Chinese market, and so unfortunately, most of our packaged foods is made by companies that they just buy from GMO companies because it's so inexpensive, and they're mass producing it. And a lot of that then is actually sent back overseas as food, but we are the recipients of that food too. It's just a big marketing thing that's going on. So very difficult to get really good soy protein. If you could probably eat it. But right now, my advice to most people is to stay away. Now, when I was an infant, I was allergic to milk. So I was allergic to milk of all kinds. My mom's milk, I was allergic to the world, really. And back then we had a product called Soylac. I think it still exists. It was soy protein milk for babies. Fortunately, I was allergic to it because now they found that soy in infants and kids up to the age of about 4 years old, soy actually turns into ricinoic acid in their intestinal tract, which is very inflammatory, very, very inflammatory. There are some indications it may cause cancer. I'm not totally convinced on that yet, but when you put something that is highly inflammatory into a bowel that's just developing, who knows what's going to develop? It could be the root of, Crohn's or any kind of other IBS, and it was very popular. So that practice now has been stopped in Canada or limited. There's a maximum amount of soy that you can give an infant, 4 grams per day. I'm just like, avoid that. If you can avoid that, please avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, because women do the absolute best that they can. I have 2 girlfriends who both had babies fairly recently, and they did everything they could to breastfeed, but both of them ended up having to top up with milk. And it came from the hospital, and it was the stuff that they were told to give their babies. And you have to really pay attention as to what is in it, because you can trust what your breast milk is providing, but if you end up having to top up because you can't produce what it is that the baby's asking for, I know it can be really frustrating, and it can create a lot of guilt, and it seems like very much today the movement is in favor of breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And 20 years ago when I had my son, which is insane to even think that happened 20 years ago, but it was actually quite the opposite. And most people weren't breastfeeding, and the people who were breastfeeding were warriors, and it was just absolutely crazy. People being kicked off of buses and being ridiculed in restaurants and out in public if they were caught breastfeeding. And I had people giving me looks and saying things to me for breastfeeding, and I never was exposing myself or anything like that, but they're definitely 20 years ago, the world was not in favor of the idea or supporting breastfeeding, whereas now the first question that you get asked when you get pregnant is, are you going to breastfeed? You should breastfeed. It's the best thing for you to do. And so there's so much, and it is the best. Here's the challenge: is there's so much pressure on the mom that if she ends up not being able to provide, then she has so much guilt for having to outsource to top up the baby. And you have to get a prescription in order to be able to pick up breast milk from, like, donor milk from the hospital. Just for you guys that might be pregnant or looking to get pregnant, you have to get a prescription, and you're only allowed to pick up the milk certain times a day. My girlfriend who had to do that didn't know that stuff, and so when she was desperate, she actually ended up having to outsource to a foundation that was created, and she was able to get breast milk delivered. Thank goodness this other woman had figured that out. But nobody needs to feel guilty for, breastfeeding and then having to top up. If you're not able to produce, then just do the absolute best you can and be savvy. And like Alan said, avoid feeding your baby something that's got soy milk in it. And then when it comes to them having food, the best you could possibly do is take stuff, blend it up, and put it in the freezer, because then there isn't any sugar added or anything like that to your food as well, because that's a big thing that that's being added to most of the baby food that's on the shelves. They've got sugar in them.
Yeah. It's really because we have he's going to be 3 this year, but
already.
Yeah.
Oh,
but the last couple of years, Grandma and Grandma have gone through this all again. Our other grandkids are a little older, but we've gone through this all again. And there was this company started in Calgary that was putting out organic baby food, and it was so good and so popular. It was really hard to come by. So when I knew Ryan was coming out here, I actually went shopping for baby food like a month before he came out to make sure we could get some of this stuff. Anyway, we did get some. And it was really good. He really liked it.
And if you have some time, just make a whole bunch of it when your baby's sleeping and throw in the freezer. I actually never bought baby food at the grocery store once, ever. I made my baby's food. I used my blender and I mashed it all up myself, and I threw a ton of it in the freezer, and when he needed it, I pulled it out. So, it's totally up to you what you decide to do. But don't feel guilty. As long as you're trying your best, there's nothing to feel guilty about. That's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah. So I was just going to say, back in the day, like when I had my drugstores, baby milk, formula was so popular.
Oh, yeah.
Like now in our family, fortunately, Donna didn't have to use formula. And that was great. She was well able to take care of our kids that way. But I know that there was many moms who, they have a baby and they're back to work in a short period of time. Even though they have maternity leave, they still have like 3 other kids or whatever, and the time just gets away on them. And so I just remember when baby milk became one of the most competitive items, and maybe it still is. I've been out of the drugstore for a while, but literally baby milk was like, it was an item of war between the drugstores. Who would have Enflac on sale? Who would have Soylac on sale? Who would have Isomil on sale? It was like, and sometimes I would go buy it from my competitor because it was cheaper than I could buy it from the wholesale.
Wow.
Crazy, right? But it was like this gigantic, it was so popular. It was a way to get people into the store, and hopefully while they were there, they would buy, something else like new baby bottles and soothers and whatever else that they might need. But it was a very, very competitive item, baby milk, substitute baby milk. We hauled tons of it. We had literally truckloads of the stuff go through my store. And I look back at that now and I think, wow, that's, here's this doctor and I working on this 4-year program, and we're helping moms as they get pregnant. We're helping them with their diet, and then we're helping them for 6 months after with their diet, making sure they're getting good proteins and so on. I don't remember recommending baby formula once to any one of those moms, or them having to use it, by the way. And so, we just had this really great experience, and we had 100 moms in that 4 years that all had really healthy babies, and it was like, to me, it was so great because just as a person who really cares about people, every time somebody would come in and buy formula, I actually kind of felt bad for them that they had to do it, or that their baby had, because that was me when I was an infant. My mom had no options. Like, we had to find something for me to eat. So, the options were very short. So, anyway, maybe that explains a lot nowadays. I'm not sure, right? But
you're pretty darn healthy, though.
Yeah. So anyway, so just so you know, soy it's a big deal. It's literally used in amazing places. Now, here's the last place I found soy, and this one really. So quite often after I do these events, I'll go and get some groceries and whatever, because I'm driving by stores on the way home, and then just before I get home, I drive through this area where these soy plants are. Anyways, in the store, and Donna had asked me to buy some meat, and I'm very, very particular about the meat that we buy. So it has to be organic and all no antibiotics, all that. It has to be really good stuff. So, and I don't really care what the cost of it is. I mean, we're eating a few ounces of it. It's not like we're eating a whole roast at a time. So, and besides that, it's my body. So if I'm going to eat meat, I'm really going to eat really good meat. So I'm going through this line of meat, right? Here's ground beef and lean ground. You guys that shop, you know this. So there's the ground beef, and then there's the lean, and then there's the extra lean, and then there's ground turkey and ground chicken and whatever. And I just happened to notice, I was thinking about getting some ground turkey, and I just happened to pick this up and read it, and found out that it had soy added to it.
What?
Soy protein was added to this package of ground turkey.
Oh,
and I did the same thing.
Goodness.
It's like, what? Right in the store, I'm like, what? And anyway, so I was just stunned to think, I was totally shocked that there was somebody come along and think, oh, there's some ground turkey, I'm going to take that home, I'm going to eat it because it's healthy. And just because I'm so used to reading labels and picking stuff up and being snooty and persnickety and picky about what it is I'm buying to put in my body, I just happened to notice it had soy. So, I'm a scientist. I went back to the start of the counter and I literally went through pretty much every package of meat. Now, you go through at your store and you see, surprise yourself. See what you can find that has soy added to it in your meat counter and other places. And I think you'll be amazed too, because I have been totally shocked. That just really made me kind of angry in a sense that it's just done. Now I know that they have ways, if the meat stays out so long and it gets a little green sheen on it or whatever, they have stuff that they can spray on it legally to take that oxidation that's going on. But I never thought of them putting soy in meat. That just really shocked me.
Yeah, that's really surprising.
Soy protein, it was on the label. Ground turkey, something else, and then soy protein. I was like, what on earth? Like, it didn't say how much was in there, it didn't say anything, just soy protein, which was enough for me to go, okay, you can keep that. So, anyway, have fun with this. It's just like we talked about sugar. There's 200 names for sugar, and if you're trying to avoid sugar, you're going to have to learn how to look for sugar in your food, and just how to find it so that you can avoid it. And just so you know, I read this article just like in the last 2 days, and it was written by somebody who, I'm going to say maybe 5-6 years ago, just wrote a scathing article on sugar, like scathing article on sugar. How bad sugar was for you. How he may have even written a book on it. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Anyway, in his article, he said, I've come to the point to realize that the chemical sourced sugar foods, that's what he called them, are likely more dangerous for us than sugar. Now, that's a really big turnaround, and for this gentleman, this is a really huge turnaround from somebody who wrote a scathing article about sugar, was encouraging people to find sugar substitutes like xylitol and so on to finally come to this conclusion. Now, I came to this conclusion on my own a number of years ago. If I'm going to eat sugar, I'm going to eat good sugar. And I think Harmony's the same. So if I'm going to have syrup, I like to get maple syrup. It's expensive, so I don't use much, but I like good stuff. If you're going to eat chocolate, eat good chocolate. Just make that decision to treat yourself that way.
With the best quality.
With the best quality. I was in a store the other night, and Linda chocolate was the same price as whatever other stuff they had there. And so why wouldn't I buy good quality chocolate?
If you're really picky about it and stuff, you can find some really good quality alternatives. We do like Swerve, and we do like monk fruit. Monk fruit is very expensive, but it is a natural fruit that was discovered by monks, which is why they call it monk fruit. And it actually, the flavor profile is quite similar to sugar, so I will use that in my tea. If I want to sweeten something and it doesn't make things taste weird like certain other sweeteners do. And the nice thing about it is that if you're looking to be on a keto diet and eliminate sugar for a while to release some weight, and you still want to be able to enjoy things, there's lots of really great recipes, and you can use the Swerve and the monk fruit and stuff to make some really great things. If you look at Keto Karma, that's a really great book that was written by a lovely mother with a young child, and so she created all of her recipes using her daughter as somebody that would approve the sweets and stuff like that. So we tend to use those around the house and stuff if we're looking for something sweet. Or I will just straight up go to the Parisian chocolatier up the street and get some really good quality truffles and chocolate and sweets and Parisian croissants that are made by this amazing man from Paris, France, and he makes everything with love, organically, and give myself that. Yeah, recently. Yeah, and he's expanded his shop, and he moved across the street, and he's got a bunch of staff now, and he's doing incredibly well. So, you can go that route, or you can just really snob out and get the best of the best, and it's absolutely worth it, because I've always said ever since I was young, I'm not going to be on my deathbed saying I should have eaten that cheesecake. Not going to do it. There's a question that came down the pipeline that I want to make sure gets answered, and it was actually a glutathione-based question. He was saying that he has black skin, and I think he's trying to say I have dark skin, and will glutathione lighten my skin?
Okay, so I just have to finish my sugar thing first, because this guy didn't leave us hanging. I'm thinking, oh, I'll just go back and eat white sugar. That's not what he was saying. What he was saying was there are like organic cane sugar. Still has the fiber, the minerals and the vitamins in it. There are good quality sugars that you can use if you. So his point was a lot of the chemical stuff that's being asulfam potassium, aspartame, a lot of the sweeteners that are being used in food. His point was that those are chemicals that our body doesn't know anything about, doesn't know how to digest, doesn't know how to process, and may have long-term effects on our even diabetes. Now they're saying that some of those could actually cause diabetes. So here's a diabetic actually trying to, eat a sugar-free diet, and that's another story. We'll talk about that another time, about the president of the American Diabetes Association going on a keto diet and resolving her diabetes, or managing her diabetes for the last years. But his point was all these chemicals that are created over here, remember there's 200 names for sugar over here, like organic cane sugar and some of the other sugars, molasses, etc., that we used to use, our grandma used to use, actually are probably the best for us. Or some of the syrups that we get, like maple syrup, etc., are actually probably better for us. He is not a big fan of agave. I'll just throw that out there. He's not a big fan of that, and I didn't really get into that. I just was so, I guess, stunned that this guy who wrote this scathing article actually had completely reversed his decision, and was encouraging people to use higher quality sugar. So if you have what glutathione will do, optimizing your glutathione, and please understand, optimizing glutathione is it's not a drug, so it's not something you do for 7 days and then you're done. Optimizing glutathione is now a lifetime of optimizing glutathione. It's something that you get to do to extend your life, increase your quality of life. The more you take it, the better it is for you. Now, we have to differentiate, because if you take glutathione, anything that says glutathione on it is not natural glutathione. That's not natural to your body. That's a product that's come from something else. It could come from a plant. It could come from a chemical factory. It could be liposomal. It could be acetyl. It could be liposomal. There's all sorts of different kinds of glutathione, L-glutathione, etc. Those all are essentially made outside the body, and they're not our natural glutathione. The glutathione we're talking about here is the stuff your body makes. It's your glutathione. It takes amino acids and the mineral selenium, and actually using an enzymatic process that's been genetically engineered since the beginning of time in single-cell organisms, and we're just 1 trillion single-cell organisms all jammed together into one unit, living in a community. It's that glutathione. So if you take and optimize that, so that's intracellular glutathione, not exogenous or extracellular glutathione. Intracellular glutathione, the effect of that is cumulative over time. What it will do for your skin, because about 14% of your glutathione is stored in your skin, and it will actually even out the skin tone. So for lots of people, they'll say, well, look, I've been taking glutathione and it's made my skin lighter because it's evened out the tone, and now they don't have dark spots and light spots and blotches and so on, because the tone is evened out. So whether they're darker or lighter, I'm really not sure, but I know that they're changed, and they like that change, and they look for that change, because it's really helped their skin tone even out. And right, that's...
Yeah, essentially what's going on is your DNA is going to dictate what your melanocytes are producing. So when you're born, and whoever it is that you're born to, your skin is supposed to be a particular color, and your DNA is dictating that. So as you age, and depending on how much sun exposure you have, where it is that you live, where you come from, your skin can become darker. And so what happens is as a result of sun exposure, your melanocytes will produce more melanin or skin color to protect your DNA. It's actually a protective mechanism. And so the more that it has sun exposure, the more that it's going to produce more melanin to protect the DNA. And this over time gives you freckles, sunspots, hyperpigmentation, and all sorts of imbalances in your, like Alan said, skin tone. And over a period of time, if it's prolonged, the melanocytes or the color factories can become they'll overproduce, they'll get tired, and they're either going to they're going to break essentially, and they're going to produce too much melanin and stop listening to what the DNA is dictating, or they're going to stop producing melanin and you're going to have lighter spots. So the beautiful thing about optimizing your own intracellular glutathione is it actually helps to heal your little color producing factories or your melanocytes so that it will produce the proper amount dictated by your DNA again. So it heals your color producing factories. So it'll go back to what it's supposed to. It will not make your skin lighter. It's not like bleach. So if your skin is supposed to be a particular color, it will bring it back to that and balance it out and reduce any pigmentation that has been brought on as a result of sun damage. So if you're looking for your skin to go lighter than it's meant to be because you're naturally dark, this is absolutely not the solution, because it's not going to go against what your actual DNA is dictating. It's healing and it's natural. So I just really want to, support you understanding that from the skin therapist perspective. I hope the skin production or the color production factory helps you to be able to kind of feel that out. But essentially that's what it's all about, is it's to protect your DNA. So what's really interesting, I know if you look at certain cultures that are in Asia more so, they really make sure that they stay inside, they protect their skin, they wear hats, they use parasols, umbrellas, all sorts of things to keep their skin light. Whereas in North America, we love a tan. In fact, most North Americans will go to tanning beds, and the ones who have darker color actually obviously have more wealth because they can go on vacation more. So it really depends kind of on what culture you come from as to what it is that you're looking for. And optimizing your glutathione is the absolute best way to live a healthy life and to support your skin and everything else in your body to be as healthy as it can be. But if you're looking to defy what it is that your DNA is dictating in regards to the color that you should be, you might want to look to other alternatives.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we live amongst a group of people who bleach. They do everything. They put on creams, they spend lots of money. There's a glutathione skin whitening cream that actually sells for $3,000 a tube that people will buy and put on, and that's not the job of glutathione. It's a mythical. It's being sold that way, but it's not how it works. Sadly, it's mythical. It's not scientific. So, but we live in that area. Like Harmony said, we see people with umbrellas, parasol. In the summertime, it would be 80 degrees out, and people are bundled up. Just they don't want any sun on their skin at all. Some of that's due to fear of skin cancer. Some of that, which by the way, if you're optimizing your glutathione, you dramatically reduce your chance of skin cancer dramatically. Even if it's been running in your family, et cetera, dramatically reduces the risk of skin cancer. So
I really appreciate you bringing up that question, just to be able to help to educate, because we do get a lot of people asking that question. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. So anyway, that's I kind of got off my chest what I wanted to talk about soy. We didn't talk about the isoflavones in soy. Isoflavones got a real big play a few years ago, and the good part of isoflavones, and now research is telling us that there's so many isoflavones, that we don't even know what the end number of that is really. I think we're now up to 44,000 different flavonoids and flavones, and we don't know what role they play in our body. They're there, so they have to play a role, and is the role that they have in a soybean the same role that they would play in a human body? Who knows? Nobody really knows. So while there was lots of talk about isoflavones a while ago, and it got really big in the weightlifting people, they were making sure they were getting their isoflavones along with their BCAAs and their protein. There's really not much good science on that. So the benefit of isoflavones in soy is highly outweighed by the other products that are in soy that can be damaging to your health, to your gut, to your endocrine system, to pretty much every body, probably your endocannabinoid system. We don't know that yet, but probably too. So anyway, my message to you is look at labels, become really aware, and you know, if you are going to eat something, then if you can find packaged tempeh, packaged kefir, and you do it yourself, I'm sure that's probably something, and there's probably people that do that. That's probably really good. I just haven't found something out there for me that I feel real comfortable eating, and I watch really carefully for soy. It's like Harmony says, instant bloat, instant flatulence, instant disruption to my intestinal tract, and so I don't need to go there. Lots of other options, lots of choices, and there are lots of options and lots of choices. So I use hemp hearts too. I think they're awesome. I think hemp hearts are really incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fiber, essentially fatty acids, and protein. So we've got lots of options. We don't have to eat stuff that our body doesn't need. Anyway,
thank you so much for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next week. For anybody who's not on Facebook, we will be posting this on our YouTube channel so that you can share this information with anybody that's not playing in the Facebook world. So we'll see you guys next week. Bye.